For all the Tiger talking about strategy and bunker placement and all of that, it's a resort course.
It's travel season. What's up, everybody? No putts given. It's travel season, Tony. How you living? In a bit, just a couple bigger topics. I love watching football, so I did not watch as much of the golfing tournamentness as I typically might.
However, off season here,
but it is kind of off season. But right, we had an event at Tigers course in Cabo, El Cardinal. Erik EVR, Callaway staffer, Erik Van Rooyen won.
Did he putt smarter?
He putted phenomenally well. And
not what I asked.
Did he putt smarter? Yes, he did. I guarantee he putted smarter. But the best thing, it was one of the best things I saw this entire weekend was his interview after the round. His best friend, college teammate, is dying of cancer. It's terminal. And so he just spoke to kind of priorities and those type of things. And again, winning is important and those things. But I thought that was pretty cool. That was a heartfelt moment. And yeah, that was probably the best thing I saw on television in the sporting world this weekend, regardless. One of the worst things I saw on television this weekend.
Did Denver play this weekend?
No, they had a bye. So can't lose on a bye week, technically. It's like getting fired on your day off. Hopefully it doesn't happen to you. But the course itself there were some pros who were none too pleased. Kelly Craft was one of them, basically trashed it, saying, hey, this isn't really a PGA Tour level course. Adam Long hit 56 out of 56 fairways.
But was he long?
He was, long enough, I guess. 50. What? Can you imagine that?
I saw Eamon Lynch and Damon Hack discussing it earlier in the week, and I think Eamon described it as generous. Right? It's at the end of the day, for all the Tiger talking about strategy and bunker placement and all of that, it's a resort course.
It is.
It is a resort course, and you can put the tees wherever you want, I guess. But at some point, a resort course almost always has to be a resort course, especially like, hey, I guess Whistling Straits, you can get away with a course that punches people in the face repeatedly. But by and large, you're going to build a resort course south of the border. It needs to be big and wide open, and
So should the PGA Tour host PGA Tour events?
Do they really, though?
On a resort course. 27 under. The golf was, he said birdie fest. Like, to me, it was everything that's wrong with PGA Tour setups. I was like, oh my gosh, this is...
don't do it all the time. It's fine every now and again. I'm not going to get irate about it.
I'm glad they had a vacation.
Okay, so did the guy who hit all the fairways win? No. Because his name is different than Erik Van Rooyen, so that tells me that
you have different names.
That he did not win. So
I don't know if he even got anything. Like at the Masters, right? You get Crystal for an eagle and stuff like that. I don't know if you get anything from Tiger for hitting every single fairway over 4 days.
Yeah, maybe a resort course.
It's a resort course.
Fine.
Do you remember the book Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe?
No.
You may have read it in middle school. I may have read it in middle school, but Alan Shipnuck first reporting. I've seen some of his tweets over the weekend and into last week, saying maybe the framework is falling apart, and we're talking about the PIF, what people erroneously were kind of calling the PGA Tour Live type framework. Hey, we hate, we're never going to work together. Oh, never mind. Some meetings, backdoor, smoke-filled rooms. Oh, now we're going to work together. But it's just a framework agreement. and now the framework's possibly falling apart. Have you heard about this, Tony?
I've seen a little bit about it, and there's, it started with maybe a couple weeks ago. Started seeing a story about, they're probably not going to hit the self-imposed deadline. And so it's just, we can push the deadline if we need to.
12/31. I mean, so we're under 2 months. My bigger question is, what we know right from that original dynamic is that the PGA Tour needed and needs money. They need more gas in the tank, right? What the Saudis wanted and what PIF theoretically wanted, right, was legitimacy. And so really a pay-for-play situation. And some people wondered, well, is there anybody else that would or has that type of deep pockets to be able to compete in that space? And the names that we're hearing, Fenway Sports Group, which owns a number of things. They're a player, right, in the sporting space. Boston Red Sox, you probably heard of them.
Yeah, they don't seem to be spending there, do they?
So maybe this is the one. Liberty
Jesus.
Strategic Capital, Acorn Growth Companies, Eldridge Industries, and a slightly bizarrely named FOG, Friends of Golf. Little nebulous there. As kind of rumored parties that may be or may not be interested. But if this is true, that the framework agreement is potentially falling apart, what does that mean?
I guess we'll find out if it falls apart.
Okay, let's assume it does. What does that mean?
Like there is, then maybe we're right back where we were, right? Where it's LIV versus the PGA Tour all over again. I don't know. It seems like it's just going to drag on forever.
Do you think that's a good thing? Overall for golf, because that's kind of how it was being sold, right? Is the PIF? Hey, this is good for global golf. The money, the funding, we can highlight players, we can work together, blah blah blah. This is going to be good for everybody. Is it good for everybody if it falls apart and they do find a different funding source? So the money just comes from somebody else. Is it better for golf or not as much?
Well, I think there's two pieces to it. Okay, they get the influx of cash they need from somewhere else, but then is everything back on the table on the legal side of things, right? And now we're like, hey, we got all this money, but now we've got to go back to spending money in courtrooms and making sure the lawyers get rich. So, I don't think long term it's probably a good thing, but we'll see. And I did see too that the PGA is not going to punish players for trying to qualify for LIV events, correct? So
correct.
I think that to me is really intriguing because our Mickelson has been saying forever, like, all these guys that want to play and LIV. I think we're going to get a sense of who those guys really are. But so that interests me. But above and beyond, I don't know. I think the peace and quiet, relative peace and quiet over the last few months has been better. I think, I don't know. I think no good comes from this dragging on.
Right. But then LIV doesn't just go away; it keeps some dynamics in there. So I don't think it's good or bad, but it is going to be interesting regardless. Is less more or is more more? The question coming from a group, Stix, not your favorite band, Tony, not your favorite band, but Stix Golf, STIX. Basically, is this, first of all, what is Stix? What are they kind of doing? And is this a trend that you think we're going to see more of? What is this Stix band?
Right. They're kind of this upstart brand that wants to simplify, take a minimalist approach to golf, and kind of point that out. That it's some of that is, hey, we're minimal in the sense of, I would say, bare bones aesthetic. Is that fair?
Sure.
You could say, pretty minimal design approach in terms of like the industrial design. Keep it looking simple, minimal in terms of their sets are 10 clubs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you get by with 10. 14 typically isn't enough for me. So, but it's an interesting angle, right? The light set, if you will, and then of course the price tag, which is perhaps most appealing, a minimalist approach to pricing products. What are they, like $6.99? Is that right?
Yeah, under $700, right? So
there we go.
The question it raises for me is this concept of, whether it's minimalist or whatever you want to call it, is okay, 10 clubs in there. The USGA, right, said legally you get up to 14. Do you need all 14? It'd be really, you need 16 to 18, right? You want to have long putter, short putter.
It's a starter set, right? And it's a starter set that...
In any other name, it's a starter set.
Yeah, it's a little different approach than what you get going into Walmart and buying that garbage. So in that respect, there's some upside to it. And I think I know Philip's working on We Tried It, kind of tell you what he actually thinks, having played some of the stuff. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting, but I don't know long term. It feels like a solution in search of a problem.
It might be.
Like, what do we say? Hey, we've got all these guys that are selling you. They'll sell you individual clubs. Right. And then you go right to the guys that, for the most part, unless it's a kid set, want to sell you all 14 in a box. So we're going to be different and just sell you 10.
Yes.
10. So, okay.
I'd like to make an argument that there's a place for it. And here's my argument is... I don't care if they're beginning golfers or, newer golfers or just, people like my mother-in-law. And you'll see why she's involved here. But at some point in time, golfers don't have enough swing speed to create meaningful distance gaps throughout their bag, right? We've talked about this. So is there like a swing speed threshold where it's like, hey, I don't need 7 clubs that all go 150 yards. 10 clubs is totally fine. I'm not going to use every knife in my Swiss Army knife toolbox. I really use 8 of them 99.9% of the time. I don't need a 3-wood and a 5-wood and a hybrid and 4, 5, 6 irons and 4 wedges and a putter. That'd be my argument.
I think the Z series, right? PXG did this similar idea with the Z series, not a full set. I'm trying to remember. I don't know what's going on with the PXG site. Did they redesign it? It's weird right now.
Celine Boutier probably said, hey, I'm your most important staffer. Redesign the site.
Yeah.
That's what you said last week.
I mean, I'm trying to think how many came in the set because they're.
But that's my question is, at a certain swing speed, like, is that something we could test or look and say, hey, unless you swing your driver X miles an hour or faster, or your 7-iron X miles an hour or faster, you probably don't need all 14 clubs.
I mean, because there's a lot of 14 club sets, and for whether sold as a set or just as an option, there's a lot of people with really low swing speed carrying all 14 clubs.
Yeah, and like 6 of the clubs still have plastic on them because they never use them. They're still sitting there. You take the head cover off. They're like, oh, why is there plastic still on this 9-wood? I never use this 9-wood.
I mean, this is the UPS on my is beeping because I need to put a new battery in it. It just came. So we'll have to deal with that for like a minute and a half.
Yeah, I think it sounds wonderful. All right. TGL, the Tiger Golf League. That's what I'm calling it.
Is it Tiger Golf League?
I just call it Tigers Golf.
What does it have a? What is that really? What the T is for?
I think the T is silent for John Rahm is no longer going to be part of it.
I saw that, boy.
I think that's actually what the T stand for. But they came up with the rules. Like I was wondering, like, okay, how is this thing actually going to work? You got 20,000 people or whatever in a stadium watching golfers play a video game golf, basically.
Watching golfers hit balls into a really big simulator. But then, But then what is it like if you're within 75 yards or whatever it is, then you just
like the short course area. Yeah.
And then then you kind of there, the beeping stops. Sorry about that, everyone. Battery will be replaced today. Yeah. And then you turn around and there's like this I don't know how you describe it, like high-tech golf hole setup type of thing.
Right.
So I don't know.
So the format, it came out, it's going to be kind of this 15-hole deal, right? The first 9 holes is basically going to be a 3-person, rotating alternate shot.
3 times, the 3x3 alternate.
3x3 alternating gets you to 9 holes. Then the second, is like a 1-on-1 battle for 6 holes. So it's 15 holes. You got timeout, you got referees, and a 40-second shot clock. You don't hit that shot within your 40 seconds, you get a stroke penalty.
You are executed on site.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have no doubt that this is going to garner some interest in the former kind of silly season of golf where we'd see events and people that are just jonesing for anything golf related are going to watch or whatever. But so I think that part's going to happen. My bigger question for you is, are we going to see it in a year? Is it going to still be here in 2025, 2026, 2027? Or is there a shelf life for this thing?
How many seasons of Shot Makers was there? I think.
Good question. I don't know. Let me look it up.
I think there was just one. This will be better than Shot Makers because if no other reason, you've got some of the best golfers in the world, right? Like Rory's doing this, Tiger's doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Young, Keegan Bradley. I mean, you could fill this. If we took everybody in their prime anyway, you could field a solid Ryder Cup team here.
Mm-hmm.
So, you got some of the best players in the world. You got something that is unique and not unique just to wash Saudi balls and things like that. So maybe. I mean, Christ, what's that stupid putting show that Rob Riggle hosts that pops up every now and again on
Holy Moly or something?
Yeah, that is it. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's more watchable than both Shot Makers and Holy Moly. Whether or not that gets us into season 2 of this thing, I don't know.
Vegas has it at 1.5 seasons.
That's sensible. I mean, ultimately, whether or not it comes back is going to depend on how much money everybody makes, right? Are the players happy with what they get? Are the networks getting enough out of it?
Right.
It's slated to be on real TV.
This is not fit in between episodes, reruns of Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill and whatever else. This is legitimate network television kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how well it's going to translate to TV from a viewership experience if you're in the stadium. I don't know how well the guys hitting golf balls into screens translates, but
right.
It's also not lost on me that broadly what gets called screen golf is massive in Asia. We see what TrackMan is trying to do with the next tour and trying to bring screen golf into the mainstream competitive realm. So I'll watch it for a little bit. I can't promise you that I'm going to be in for the long haul as a guy who has made no secret about the fact that I don't really watch golf, but the fact that it is kind of new and different and a little bit weird.
Mm-hmm.
I'll check it out.
I'm intrigued. Like I said, Vegas has a line at 1.5. That's not true, but if it did, that would make sense to me. 1.5 seasons over or under. That would get me thinking a little bit. Tech talk time, technical details of the world. Like I said, this is travel season, Tony. Keep your bags packed. We're going places. Frequent flyer miles. It's that time. Game on. You were in Texas last week. How was it? What did you learn?
I learned to putt smarter. Have not been paying attention. Yeah, we got the hands-on look at the Odyssey AI1 putters, went through a fitting.
What'd you end up with?
I ended up in a number 8.
Which is what, for people that don't
connote
numbers with
it's a
putter
little
head
bit
shapes.
of a different kind of thing.
Number 7's kind of the fang looking one, right? A lot of times the 1s and 2s are kind of your typical, blade style answer to type of traditional putters. But when you say number 8,
this is not the traditional.
I think of the Ocho. You ended up in the Ocho, which who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mallet. It's one from the milled face collection. It was kind of interesting. So it did a right proper fitting.
Mm-hmm. What did you learn through that fit? Like anything interesting pop out? Because a lot of times you'll find a putter, like it, boom. I remember when you stole one at Bandon Dunes, just didn't give it back to TaylorMade. I putt really well with this. Boom, it's a mallet, different shape, stuff that you had never really putted with, and then you putted really well with it. So, what did you learn?
I mean, a lot of it. So I wouldn't say I learned much of anything other than the tech story, right? And ultimately, it was about preserving speed, off center face, and the number they give is roughly 21% tighter dispersion. So not nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the 8 now to see.
It's something to chew on.
Almost like a kind of almost like original catch, maybe something in that.
Oh, okay.
So, So anyway, and so working with the fitter, like he didn't tell me anything I already didn't know, but it sort of observed that my eyes are way inside the golf ball when I putt, which might explain why I've been reduced to putting with a ball with a big fat line on it, because my orientation is so far from above the ball that there's some guesswork there, and the lines, it's trust the lines, not your eyes kind of thing for me. And it's worked really well. But what we did, or what the fitter did, was put me in a 33-inch shaft.
Oh.
And the idea like
so
that
you had to stand much closer then,
yeah. So that's ultimately what we're working on, is forcing me to get the eyes more over the golf ball. So
I want to see you putt with a 33-inch putter and standing really far away from it, and see, if you can.
He's going to make some language, right? Yeah.
See if you can still make contact with it.
So I mean, but it's worth trying. It is designed to fix an error in my setup, and worst case scenario is I putt with something I already have, and I'm putting well with. So there's no downside to it. I'm sure if I absolutely hate it, we can extend it, put a different shaft in it, whatever. We're flexible there. So
easy problem to solve.
Yeah, definitely interesting.
And then this week, we're going to circle back to the topic 2 on your agenda, on your outline. This week, we're headed out to Cobra. We talked about last week a little bit what our hopes and dreams are, for each of the OEMs as we hear different things from them. But it's kind of got me thinking, like I said, we'll see the stuff. We'll report on what we can, whatever. But I was thinking about Cobra this way a little bit, is you talk about like an Odyssey putter. Nobody is going to stop and ask you, why are you putting with an Odyssey putter? Like, people aren't going to ask you that, right? Cobra has a little bit of this sense of feel of like, I show people my Aerojet LS, right? My driver, and they're like, oh, almost like, why are you playing that? Kind of like, almost like you need a reason to, people aren't going to stop you and go, oh, why are you playing a TaylorMade driver, Tony? That's odd. But it's almost like you need an excuse or a reason to play a Cobra driver or piece of equipment. My question, and which is stupid because they're phenomenal, but do you think they can shake that? Can Cobra get to a place where people just play it because it's known
not easily
as quality?
Not easily.
But can they?
Yeah, it's a weird one because, like you said, I mean, I've played Cobra drivers off and on since I've been with MyGolfSpy. We both, I think, settled on, ended up with Aerojet in the bag for most of the season.
Absolutely,
it's just one of those things. But it's There is a culture of familiar within golf, and it's sort of just goes round and round, right? TaylorMade is and Callaway the most played,
right?
because most people play them, and then when the new ones come out, people buy them because they were the most played and the most familiar, and and that's not to say that Callaway and TaylorMade don't make great product, but I think
certainly do.
I think if you ask Cobra, I feel like when given the opportunity to compete, they're gonna win more than their current market share in the category suggests they should. So,
well, that's the interesting dynamic, right? And that's what brands try to do all day, every day, right? Is build loyalty, get people in the ecosystem, so that the next time you're thinking about buying a car or whatever, you don't even look outside of Toyota or Ford or whatever. You go, hey, I've had 2 of these, loved them, did it. I'm going to stay kind of in that vein. That being said, companies spend hundreds and millions and billions of dollars, right, on trying to change perception of a brand and tell a story about it. So you have these two, forces kind of juxtaposed, working in some ways against each other. And that's where I think, to me, the Cobra dynamic is super, super interesting, because they have that. They have the technology, certainly. They have talented people on the club design side, without a doubt. But they don't have yet that firm brand identity as an independent, right? Like when it was part of Acushnet way back when, it was kind of like Cobra was kind of like the rogue experimental brand, right? Like Titleist was straight-laced, you know what you're going to get, da-da-da. And Cobra was kind of like off menu, like, hey, we're going to try some different stuff. And it kind of had that identity. And I don't know if people would say, hey, I know exactly what Cobra's identity is right now, today.
Well, I think, right, as innovative as they've been for the last decade plus, they kind of position themselves, certainly I would say early on in the Ricky years, right? Like we're the fun brand. We're the cool, kind of loud, fun brand.
Lots of orange, Amsel, bright colors.
Yeah, and so, maybe that, I don't know that appealed to everyone. And again,
sure,
the tech has been really, really good. But you had that, and you had the Bryson years where they were kind of winning a little bit more,
right?
But then the driver sucked. Right, so it's like your guys aren't helping you. Ricky was in a slump, and there is, as much as we say tour play shouldn't matter, it's tough to overcome a situation where the guys who win on tour week in and week out generally are not winning with Cobra.
Right,
they're winning with Callaway and TaylorMade and Titleist and Ping, and that's. And by and large, that's a numbers game more than anything else, right? Like, how many guys do on tour play Callaway drivers? Most of it paid.
Right.
How many guys on tour play TaylorMade drivers? A lot of that's paid. How many guys on tour Titleist drivers? And it's
right.
You're paying to play Cobra. Typically, in any given week, there's probably less than a handful in play. Some weeks it's one or two. Maybe arguably just one now that Bryson is off living his best
life. Crank it out.
Yeah. So it's really tough for a brand that's not winning on tour, I think, to make any real headway. And same thing, are you PXG for all this success on LPGA, especially of late? Similar story, right? You still get that play back. Well, who plays PXG on tour? And then, who plays Cobra? Well, when was the last time he won? And so, like, it's all right. You answered my first question. Let me push the goalpost on a second one. It's tough. It's just tough, and it's one of those things. I would tell everybody, look, if you're gonna go try a Callaway or a TaylorMade or a Titleist, whatever you're gonna try, make sure just bring the Cobra into the conversation.
Might be surprised. Might be
hit more balls. That's fun. I mean,
hit more golfing.
Hit more balls.
John Barber wrote an article this week. It came out kind of this science of feel idea. We kind of first introduced this a little bit. We'll talk more about it in the after show. But the idea, right, is like Titleist shifting in their T-Series irons to, again, we talked about perception and perspective on these different things. Titleist has had exceptional success on tour with T-Series irons, really going back to AP Series irons, and obviously having an ambassador like a Jordan Spieth when he was winning everything he signed up for, it appeared, certainly didn't hurt. But you've had a wide range acceptance of like T100 in particular, and now they say, wait a minute, we can do T100 and make it feel quite a bit better. Does this elevate Titleist in your eyes, Tony, in terms of that iron category into maybe that top tier of clubs that we talk about as feeling like, oh, my word, that felt unbelievable? Does this put Titleist there yet?
No.
No,
and it's not to say that there isn't truth to it. I think if you hit the new T Series alongside the old, and again, when in my fitting, as part of the fitting, not even as a hey, try this, we want you to notice the feel difference, but like, hey, here's an older model that has the lie angle bent at the hosel versus using our adapter. Let's just confirm this looks good,
right?
And that was night and day. So it's very clear to me that there is real progress on the feel side, and I know it's been something. I've been talking to their VP of Golf Club Marketing, Josh Talgi, about this for several years, because it's certainly not lost on Titleist that there is such high regard for Mizuno. I think is a great example, right? It's just like the association of great feel and the reverence golfers feel for that brand when they experience that feel. And so they certainly want to be held in that same regard. I think every company would like to, but
sure,
realistically, like, golf is weird. Golfers have long memories. And so, yeah, I could argue Titleist belongs in the feel conversation at this point in time right now today, but Mizuno, for its part, has perhaps dominated the field conversation for a long time.
Yeah.
And I would tell you that guess what? TaylorMade has made tremendous strides. Their irons feel really good. Cobra's irons, particularly the forgings, have felt really good for a really long time. And so even if it's there, it doesn't instantaneously put you in the conversation, because it takes a long time to build that association.
Yeah.
It's a step in the right direction, a big step in the right direction, especially like going back many, many years ago. I remember a couple, 2, 3, right? We had a no putts given. We were talking about the utility irons, and it was either the U500 or the 510 at the time. And I just remember Harry just be like, yeah, it feels like shit when you hit it on the toe. And I was like, that is not nice. And it's also very true.
Yeah.
And so loud, it's just so to just get away from that is awesome, but it's going to take golfers who experience that a long time to kind of appreciate where they are right now.
Yeah. And we'll talk, like I said, after show, if you're interested, stick around, because that's what we're going to talk about, is kind of this idea of what makes a golf club feel a certain way. Why can't they all feel...
Diatomaceous earth.
Write that down.
Wild.
All right, Tony, I know you don't have your running shoes on, so we're going to do a saunter. Not speed golf, maybe, but...
Saunter golf?
Saunter golf.
Here's what I found.
Oh.
That's my 9 club brand.
Yep, is that what it is? Saunter golf?
Yeah, what's more streamlined than 10 clubs?
9.
I found this on the web.
Hey, that's enough, Siri. Siri likes saunter golf, apparently.
Serious sauntering. I've got a beeping UPS. We are having a show.
We have a show. All right, pass or fail.
Smarter.
MN, ML, minimal, right? No vowels. They dropped every vowel. Minimal golf, new bag. Pass or fail, Tony? You like the bag or no?
Yeah, it's nice looking. It's kind of looking at the review, reading the write up on it. It's one of these things. I like the idea of a integrated Bluetooth speaker. I just think that's one of those things where you're probably better off getting a high quality Bluetooth speaker if that's what you want. Connor mentions that. little solar power pack is nice to have. So
Yeah.
minimal and also modern.
Exactly.
Minimal and
Absolutely.
modern.
And they're clearly going for the techie approach of how much kind of tech in some ways can we infuse in a golf bag. We're going to give you connected speakers in the bag. We're going to give you, like you said, a solar powered battery recharger thing.
Lightweight recycled materials, it looks to be.
I like it's different, right? And it's hard to be different in spaces that are dominated. It's not a new brand, so I give them kudos for trying to stick out, do something different in a way that actually might be more advantageous to a golfer looking for it. So I love that. Titleist test.
Yeah, I tell you, like I'm looking at like this cool feature, right? Like a pouch for your cell phone. But there's no way. There is absolutely no way I am putting my cell phone in a pouch and hoping that it stays there.
You don't think it's going to stay there?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to find out that it doesn't. How's that?
That's fair. Titleist test balls. I had some test balls. They're in the basement right now because I was hitting them. Showed up on my doorstep. I played around with them a little bit this morning. My initial thoughts, Tony? Did you ask? I'm glad you did. Here's my initial
What are your initial thoughts on those?
My initial thoughts are, so I just started with wedges. I want to start kind of from the green and work backwards. So I start, some chipping, 40, 50, 60, up to 100-yard wedge shots. And again, this is apropos of nothing. I don't have a ton of data. I just compared it to like one or two other balls that were down there. There's definitely a very soft feel to impact. Right? Some balls feel firmer, some feel softer. I'm not saying that I like one more than the other. Just saying impact felt soft-ish. And spin was in the realm of normal for me. Towards the lower end of normal, but in,
low normal?
Low normal. It was low normal.
That's kind of how your IQ was described, right?
Yes, exactly. Well, the normal part was, I don't remember. I went to state. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll keep testing. But that was kind of an initial spot there. Had a question pop up on the interwebs. And the question was this. When I read results, testing different things, should I trust robot results? Should you trust them, Tony?
What's the context? I mean, that's a broad one.
That was just how the question was
based
asked.
On the information I've been given, I would say definitely, maybe, perhaps, possibly.
How about this? Give me a situation where you would trust robot results, and give me a situation where you might question the results of robot testing.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously, I'm going to tell you our ball test is
I
pretty good example
of
results you should trust. I mean,
yep,
I know what goes into that. I think robots, as you know, we prefer them to, we prefer humans to robots for our club tests, and that's based on ongoing and years worth of conversations with manufacturers. But there are areas, if you want to know exactly, hey, how does driver A compare to driver B if I clank it out on the toe? That's a good area where a robot's going to give you a pretty solid piece of information. But where I'm always a little dubious is it's the constant bombardment of golf companies who have paid for independent tests, right? And then it's just the perfect example I give is every ball in golf is longer than a Pro V1. Like we've seen that test over and over again,
a million times. Yeah,
and there are absolutely conditions you can, and that's the rub, right? Because the robot only knows what
it's programmed to do.
So, you can configure a robot to give you what you want it to. If for example, like if you have a driver and you're trying to get a good result in a robot test, and hey, my advantage for my club over the one I'm comparing against, if we tee it up to hit it a little high on the face, I'm going to win that battle. And it's things like that. And we can mess with attack angles and all sorts of things to kind of get the result you want. And that's the other piece of it, right? Like That's the downside of some of the robot testing we see is that like the companies dictate the parameters.
Right.
It's like, hey, we want you to
The
test
home
this
team
and
always
this and
wins, right?
test it this, right? Yeah, and so
Yeah.
it is always a home team situation for the stuff that gets published by golf companies. So I always look at that a little bit of a side eye.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair. Holiday gift guide season between now and the last minute shoppers. We're gonna have gift guides coming out of every bodily orifice. It's gonna be all over the place. First one we posted was I think is personalized gifts, which I thought was pretty cool. If you could get anything personalized, like if you were shopping for a golf type of thing and you wanted it personalized, what would be the number one thing on your list, Tony? Do you want a personalized Putt Smarter hat? Do you want a personalized?
Well, it is. See, like I personalized it. I use this right here to personalize it to my head.
You did.
I did.
You did. Are you going the personalized bag route? Are you going personalized golf balls? What's the first personalized thing?
I do kind of like the personalized golf ball stuff, and I'm kind of playing that now. But like Bridgestone back in the day made us some logo balls. I loved having the MyGolfSpy logo on balls. I think we've seen some of the stuff TaylorMade's doing with their picks program. Like, be nice to one day maybe see some logos there. So yeah, I like golf balls.
Okay.
Wedge stamping. I do a little bit of that.
I like that one a lot.
So.
I think that's probably mine would be the personalized wedges. I like to put song lyrics oftentimes on my wedges. Typically, it's a Wu-Tang Clan reference on the wedges, although this year might be different. We'll see. I'm going to be looking for some inspiration. Maybe somebody out there has some inspiration for me that they think I should put on my wedges or that Tony should put on his wedges.
There's a new WedgeWorks wedge that just dropped. Like by the time we're done recording this, it will be out tomorrow, which will be yesterday for anybody watching.
It'll be out tomorrow, yesterday, Tuesday.
There you go. Yeah.
What is it?
A grind.
Ooh. A grind.
Yeah.
A grind. Not just the grind, but a grind.
It's a grind.
It's a grind,
it's a grind you can buy at WedgeWorks. Yeah.
Okay. Well, stay tuned for that, people. That's a lot of information. I know. We're going to come right back in just a moment. Science, feel, why they feel a certain way. Hold tight. We'll be right back. Kick it down a notch, the after show. We're back. State. This is for my guy Jake Stiano. He went to college here, Colorado State Rams. We talked last week. He still got screwed, but I got the sweatshirt. And I figured, what? I'm gonna wear it.
That's so generic too.
Like I said, low middle IQ. It doesn't take much.
I just like State.
Yeah, I love it.
I love Lamp.
Lamp. Lamp. Maybe that'd be a good thing to put on your wedge, Tony. Lamp. I love Lamp. We could do Ron Burgundy quotes. Maybe that'd be a good one for this year. I don't know. We'll see. Science, feel, sound. Some clubs feel good.
Loud noises!
Loud noises. Some clubs feel like trash. And here's the thing. Who was that? Was that a child?
Amelia's home today.
Oh.
She's like, what?
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 There's going to be somebody that's going to say, well, feel.
Not to you.
It's entirely subjective. You can't take something that's inherently subjective, and then put, start to rank order them. Oh, this sounds better than that. This feels better than that. Maybe I like it. Maybe you don't. But that's not true. Is it, Tony? It's not true.
Maybe.
So let's talk. We're going to talk about, clubs, and we might get into metalwoods, but I want to start irons and wedges. What actually determines how a club feels? And specifically, again, we're talking about feel at impact, right? Or what are the different criteria?
Mostly geometry.
Let's go through
It's
the
mostly
criteria.
Geometry.
Okay, meaning what? What does that mean?
Shape and where material is placed. Simply put, I guess.
So geometric properties. So
Yeah. It's like,
what does the club look like? How much mass is in different areas? What's the shape of that mass?
what else have we stuck in those areas to mitigate or enhance
Okay.
sound, feel, whatever you want to call it? Because
All right.
it's
So we
really
got
hard to separate the two, I think.
it is because sound is feel, right? Like it's the whole idea of like harmonic impact technology, studying the harmonics of impact and understanding vibrations and things like that. Yeah, sound is feel. Okay. So if I have two clubs, let's say they have the exact same geometry, exact same mass properties, but different types of metal, could one feel better than the other based on the type of metal used, do you think?
Minimally, probably. I would say, right? We give that's kind of the ripple in all of this is that the material always gets the credit.
Uh-huh.
And that's why, like, forged metals feel better than cast metals, and it's when you talk to R&D guys and club engineers, you realize, like, no, it's just really more about the geometries used in casting versus the geometry of the clubs that we use in materials, and then casting or forging oftentimes dictates or at least limits the materials that you can use, and so yada yada yada, you get this idea of like, oh, this is the best feeling material versus, well, this is the right blend of material and geometry that creates a pleasant feel because at impact it reaches a certain volume level at a certain frequency for a certain duration.
I want to come back to that because I still like the Costanza yada 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 reference. 1025. Like, so I'll just throw out some numbers here that we hear, right? Because these are, when we talk about carbon steel, you'll hear 1020, or in Japan it's S20, 1025, S25. Even back in the day when scratch golf was around, you'd hear about like 1018. And, with the lower the number, that being painting with broad strokes here, the softer the metal. And like you said, the metal would get a lot of credit. Oh, ooh, man, these are forged from 1020. Oh, these are forged 1025. Ooh.
Is that five? Is that better or worse?
Is that worse? Is that okay? Well, it's oh no, but it's 1025 and it's been treated. It's double aged, or it's some type of.
It was stored in oak barrels.
It was exactly. It was stored in oak barrels for millions of years, watched over by Japanese samurai for decades or whatever. So now it's fine. And then you get something like 8620, right, which is a harder material, but we've seen clubs that are cast out of 8620, like Vokey wedges, stuff like that, right? And we've also seen Ping use 8620 in forged irons. So that brings up the forged versus cast part. It's like, hey, we're using 8620 in both. Why would you use 8620? Why would you not use a 1020 or a 1025?
Durability.
Bingo. Especially on things with grooves, right? Where wedges, you think, right? You want to prolong groove life as much as you can, probably. And any benefit gained from going to a softer forged head is probably more than offset by, the decrease in longevity of it. So we got that piece going on. You got materials. We got mass properties. Whew. But ultimately, it all comes down to, what did you say before? The vibration, the frequency. Say that part again.
Volume, frequency, and duration. Right?
Okay, so break that down for me. Hold
so
on.
we hear, like, obviously volume's pretty, like, is
volume,
it loud or not? Probably don't like loud things. Sasquatch, for example.
Okay.
And then we've seen talked about now, and it seems like it's an increasing number of companies having the field discussion, and really starts with a frequency discussion, and we figured out, right, if we can get the frequency at impact in this range, and then it peaks here for X amount of milliseconds or microseconds, right? That's your duration. We know that this is what golfers perceive as good feel / sound. And that's typically kind of the things that we're hearing about and know. Like, it becomes as much as we think about feel as this personal experience, to an extent it is, but this idea of like, yeah, it may be a personal experience, but we know that if we can nail in this range and the peaks and valleys are where they need to be for the duration they need to be, that you're going to have a good experience. So, there's not too many that are going, yeah, man, I feel like the Sasquatch was maybe the best feeling driver of all time.
Right.
I don't know why it gets a bad rap.
I don't know,
That
man.
was for me. Wait, you don't hear it because, again, the designers know where the happy spots are, and that's
so there are sweet spots.
And now we're engineering towards those happy spots.
All right, so I'll ask you that. So if we have these kind of sweet spots, we know, there's a certain volume, right? And let's say, from quiet to loud, let's say it goes 0 to 10. Sasquatch was, maybe like an 11. Like, it broke the barrier. But they narrow it down, and let's just say, for argument's sake, they say, hey, between 7 and 8. 90% of golfers that we surveyed, pros through, liked 7 to 8. So we go, okay, here's our sweet spot. We know it's between 7 and 8. It gets much louder than 8. People go, If it's too quiet, they don't perceive it as maybe powerful enough or whatever it is.
It's interesting, right? Because you could argue like Nike made the loudest driver of all time, and then when you got into like the Vaporfly series, the last one, the carbon model, maybe the quietest driver of all time.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Is like, what materials can go up and increase or decrease some of the stuff. But okay, so volume, we got that nailed. Then you say frequency, right? And frequency is, if you want to think about it as like vibration or whatever, that is kind of this impact and feedback that we get, right? And that's the sound, right? The pitch of it, kind of. Is that fair?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, so what's the frequency, Kenneth? God bless it. You have a frequency. And again, same thing. Different clubs, where players tend to fall, what they like and don't like. All right, great. And then duration, how long that frequency lasts. So if we're able to get these kind of 3 areas dialed in, are clubs going to start becoming overall more similar in how they feel? Or are we still going to be able to see big differences between, again, a brand A and a brand B?
I mean, differences will continue for no other reason than when, for a lot of companies, sound, I don't want to say it's an afterthought, but it's not the first priority. It's like, all right, how can we get more tech into these irons? How can we put more weight out in the perimeter? How can we do X, Y, Z? And all of those things impact the sound and feel of the club. And so, especially when game improvement clubs, for example, which are often on 1-year cycles, like when you only have 1 year to get your tech dialed in and out the door, to kind of be like, oh yeah, and we're also going to get the sound and feel right, or what we want it to be. It's or maybe more directly what golfers want it to be. That's a big ask, and it doesn't come through. I mean, you and I, a couple years back, right? We're in a conference room looking at giving the presentation of a game improvement iron that I would argue is a very good game improvement iron, but it came with the promise of forged iron feel. And then you and I hit that, and we're like,
it did not deliver. Either that, or I've been playing the wrong forged irons for a long.
So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, but that's, I think you give most golfers a similarly made muscle back, right? Single piece forging, somewhere between 3 and 5x forged, and cover up the markings and tell me which feels better or which is which, or even pull out the Mizuno out of this pile.
Right. Good luck. good luck.
It's not to say that differences don't exist and can't be measured, but they're getting smaller, and a lot of it's going to depend on exactly where you hit the club face from one swing to the next. So
yeah, I agree. Especially in different designs, sound and feel are kind of a luxury, if you will. Like I said, game improvement or super game improvement space, some of that stuff where you're using a lot of materials and maybe shapes and geometries that make it harder to get everything into those kind of 3 areas we were talking about. They say, okay, we can get all the performance stuff dialed in, and then whatever we have left over, we'll make the sound and feel as good as we possibly can.
Because you end up a lot of that too, especially like a forging kind of is what it is, and that's shaping the club to get the best feel. But as soon as you go to multi-piece construction or even complex single piece design, we've got channels and grooves and that sort of stuff. Knowing that, everything you're doing to, for example, put some tungsten, create a pocket for some tungsten.
Yeah.
That's going to
awesome
impact
for mass
That's going to impact sound and feel. And then, hey, all right, now maybe to get it back to where we want it, we need to add some ribs or other support structures or some sort of dampening material, whatever it happens to be. And now you're kind of navigating into, hey, maybe is this stuff I'm trying to get to gonna mess with the performance a little bit? Is it gonna raise the center of gravity? Anything like that? So it's a balancing act. And I think oftentimes you just kind of get where you get from one year to the next, learn from it, and try again. I mean, look at P790 this year, for example.
Yeah.
Where they've each iron kind of has, like I kind of describe it like
kind
a
of
cavity finger in there, and they're kind of different shapes and different places, and it's all about trying to get that sound and feel dialed in. So
100%. Just really quickly on the metalwood side, you're mentioning the carbon, like the one with Nike was super hilarious because we've seen this over time, right? As construction has changed, and we'll leave TaylorMade out of it for a second, going to the carbon wood because having a carbon face, different deal. But we've seen some drivers, in some ways, totally miss the mark. I think that balance of powerful. You want people, a lot of golfers, when they make, and you just absolutely smoke one, you want it to resonate and feel like, man, that was powerful, right? You don't want it to be so muted that it's like, I don't know if I hit that really good or not.
Yeah,
but
like that Nike could smoke it, and it was like,
yeah. I was like, what? But then on the other hand, you have some that are so objectionably loud, you make contact anywhere on the face, and it's like, throwing a tin can down an aluminum roof or something, into a pool of more tin cans and aluminum roofs or whatever. I don't know. But it's just loud. So what have we seen companies do to try to find that balance? Because I think you've even seen like year over year, like I'll go back to Cobra for a second, because a couple generations ago, good performance, the sound wasn't really dialed in, and I would argue the sound and feel like this year on Aerojet was absolutely better, noticeably better. So what are we seeing companies do?
I mean, it's what are you trying to do from a performance standpoint, and then can you, in some cases, almost reverse engineer the sound and feel back into it after you get there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we see rib structures are the big one. Kind of when you see those cutaways and you kind of see like these random things placed in there. I mean, PX3 had once upon a time, right, that honeycomb polymer stuff and the anchor to the sole just to try and take out some of the vibrations. So, I mean, different approaches to get to the same place for sure. And sometimes you have a really good design, I think. And no matter what you do, you can't get the sound right. So Cobra F6 Plus, remember the carbon track?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Just tremendous performance. Innovative, certainly for its time, but, it's kind of a one and done because could not make the sound pleasing. And so I think
Yeah, Ping went through a couple series like that where performance good, forgiveness really good, sound feel.
It's sort of the irony of Titleist when you think about it for a while. And again, I wouldn't say their irons have ever really felt bad, but they do such a great job with the metalwoods. For my money, best feeling drivers in golf.
Like TSR3 this year, like it hit. It for the most. I know Arizona was driver of the year, but like from a classic look, sound, feel, shape perspective, TSR3 centerfold, pin it up there.
Yeah, I mean they've nailed the sound and feel, and it's been that way really for a while. And so to kind of, again, I don't want to say they've missed on the irons, but it hasn't been kind of that same
they're not commensurate.
Yeah, it's like you don't even worry about this. You already got that sorted out. Just don't mess with that. So, and that's kind of the point with the metalwoods, right? There's solidly in that. Yeah, no, you don't really need to do anything with sound and feel. I think there is some preference, right? Some guys like that.
Sure.
More of that composite pop, if you will. I'm not one of them. But yeah, how do you elevate the irons to the same level if you're a Titleist?
That is the question, people.
And Mizuno's kind of in the other side.
I was going to say, it's like
how do we elevate the ST series to be right here from the sound and feel perspective with Mizuno Pro?
Maybe they should just merge. Zuno. Not going to happen. But anyway, on that note, people, there's all sorts of things. Like I said, Tony and I will be out later this week. We'll come back next week with see what we saw.
Is there? I don't. Is next week? I think next week is the week, right?
Oh, I may be filming in a hotel. We'll see.
You'll be in Buffalo.
I will be in Buffalo. Monday night game. Broncos.
That team's disappointing this year, isn't it? Bills. I mean, not Broncos disappointing, but still like.
Hey, easy. It's my team you're talking about there.
That's why I don't even watch the American football anymore.
Yeah, because the metric football teams never lose. They're never disappointing. It's always exactly what you expect, right?
A lot of ties.
A lot of ties. Anyway, we will be back.
90 minutes of 0-0, 0-0 football.
Right.
So, yeah, that was my
Nothing sounds more riveting than that. And until next time, we out.